All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Mind of a Skeptical Leftist, the show where I promote critical thinking, social justice, and left-wing politics by covering current events and talking to a variety of people who know more than I do. Today, I'm talking to Travis View, who is a conspiracy theory researcher and co-host of the podcast Qanon Anonymous. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Corey.
So I guess the first thing is, who is Travis View? What got you into this?
So yeah, I mean, Travis View is a pseudonym. First of all, Travis View is the name of a Twitter account that I made in 2017 in order to shit post and like make fun of people when I got bored at work, basically. But
Okay.
my day job was as a digital marketer. But then I started noticing, basically, in about July of 2018, that this QAnon thing that I was sort of vaguely aware of, just because I spent too much time online, was starting to creep into kind of mainstream politics and mainstream social media networks and mainstream kind of political discourse. What really tipped me off was the fact that Charlie Kirk, this pretty prominent conservative, speaks all over the country, he founded Turning Point USA, he's been on Fox News a bunch of times. He started promoting these bogus QAnon statistics and from his verified account. And this concerned me greatly because it signaled to me that this QAnon thing wasn't staying in the bowels of the internet anymore. It was gaining traction. And so that sort of inspired me to start following it more closely. I've always been sort of interested in skeptical topics, as a hobby before. For example, back in the mid 2000s, I was really interested in young Earth creationism and intelligent design and other kinds of pseudoscience and how popular they had become. And so I was sort of familiar with this kind of this magical thinking that drives these kinds of conspiratorial movements. And I really saw a lot of that in the QAnon community. So that's what really motivated me to try and understand it as best as I can and explain what I understood through my Twitter account.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds roughly close to the time when I was getting into like the atheist movement and the skeptical movement and listening to podcasts like The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe and stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember reading Skeptic magazine and stuff. And I thought it was it was a really attractive way to understand the world. It was very hopeful. It was this this belief that you can sort of grasp the world and have a really powerful explanatory filter that allows you to discard beliefs that don't actually comport with empirical reality. So that's what really got me into it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't realize that you kind of got your start in the skeptic sphere as well. It seems like a lot of, people who are promoting critical thought nowadays that are looking at conspiracies kind of did get their start somewhere in that.
Yeah. I mean, especially when it came to like in intelligent design, and we saw like it wasn't just a belief system; it was this campaign to teach pseudoscience in schools. That might have been successful were it not for the fact that there were skeptics who fought against it. Specifically, there was this great organization up in Oakland called the National Center for Science Education, and they do a lot of stuff to basically prevent these creationist laws from allowing the teaching of creationism in public schools. They did really great work, and I was inspired by that because it really showed you that you can sort of block the spread of nonsense in a broader way. It is possible. I mean, obviously, it's more difficult in the sort of on social media or even in the political sphere. But there is, but it taught me that it is a noble fight, and it is a noble fight that you can gain ground on.
Yeah, it's possible anyway, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, sometimes I do come off as a bit of a doomer, I guess, when I would talk about the stuff and how often yeah, I mean, these kinds of conspiracy theories, they're so popular, and they're not, they're just attached to, they're popular because they make people feel good. And the thing is that you can provide all the sort of the rational arguments you want in the world, but I don't have the power to make people feel as good as they do when they buy into nonsense like QAnon. But it did show that, through a lot of persistence, it is possible to sort of counter or stymie the growth of these movements. And in terms of intelligent design creationism, a lot of the biggest intelligent design proponents, they have moved on. They've moved on to other projects, and they've given up the fight because they hit a brick wall in terms of the courts, and especially there was one particular ruling called Kitzmiller versus Dover that really was sort of the kill shot for the growth of the intelligent design creationist movement. So, I mean, we're probably not going to have something that effective in terms of QAnon, but it felt it felt good to be on the winning side on something. So it also felt like it just made me believe that there is hope to fight back against nonsense in the public sphere.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because I too do come across as a doomer quite a bit. It often seems like a joke, because I think, oh geez, there's no way to combat this. But then I keep doing this show, and I keep trying, keep on posting on Facebook, trying to contact people that, have these kind of beliefs. So you can be a doomer, but it's like, at least I'm still trying, right?
Yeah. I suppose. Yeah. The fact that I've just been, especially a lot of these, these conspiracy theories, they're so sticky, and they're they're, even when they're based on absolutely nothing. They're of course the classic one is the idea that Comet Ping Pong had a basement in which children were being tortured, when in reality the Comet Ping Pong has no basement. So the entire sort of model of this particular criminal activity is based upon nothing in reality, at least that, so this sort of the specifics of these kinds of conspiracy theories are just nonsense, and they catch on because they resonate with people, and not because the specific particular claims are true.
I've even seen recently claims that Comet Ping Pong does in fact have a basement. They just hide it.
Yeah. It's just people, or stuff like really frustrating stuff like I guess the Seth Rich conspiracy theory, which just caused a lot of anguish to the Rich family, and this is something that continues to pop up even to this day, even when there is no substance to the idea that his tragic murder was the result of some kind of political assassination or something like that. And the people just like the narrative, and so people just stick to it, and they repeat it, and they really, at the end of the day, they don't care about the evidence. They would feel like they have some sort of inside information that's going to blow the lid off of high level corruption. Right.
I guess as far as QAnon is concerned, I have done already a kind of a brief explainer episode on QAnon, where I kind of went into a bunch of articles that I had read on the subject. But one of the things that I think I missed was this idea of digital soldiers. Now, what exactly is a digital soldier?
So yeah, the whole concept of a digital soldier is the idea that that QAnon followers, they don't think they're merely engaging in political debate. They think that they are engaged in an information war, and that that by posting and memeing and spreading this particular QAnon propaganda, they won't simply grow the ranks of their fellow of QAnon generally. They believe that they will be able to basically cause this grand revolutionary change, and then sweep out all the corrupt people from their positions of power, and then institute a sort of a grand new utopian age in which there's an unimaginable wealth and new cures to diseases, and they can sort of basically usher in a utopia. And this is I think a really ambitious project for what basically consists of spamming memes on Twitter or other social media networks.
Yeah, we're gonna save the world through memes.
Yeah, it's so delusional. I mean, it really is. When we talk about it, it's a society of the spectacle stuff. The idea that just this sort of these superficial, the superficial act of consuming and creating media is going to have some sort of, just by itself is going to have a revolutionary change on society.
Yeah, that's pretty good. What is the crossover between the digital soldier type idea of saving the world and the Save Our Children hashtag?
So yeah, the Save Our Children hashtag is what we often call it, sort of the soft front for QAnon, because the thing about QAnon is that it got to a point where it started to have some sort of baggage. It started being associated with crazy conspiracy theories, I think quite reasonably. And so some savvier QAnon followers, one in particular named Scotty the Kid, started organizing this campaign called Save the Children. That's it. Just save the children.
Okay.
And of course, the brilliance of it is that it's wholly inoffensive. Who doesn't want to save children? Everyone's pro, keeping children safe. And so what they don't tell you, of course, is that they aren't interested in actually saving real children. They're sort of interested in sort of protecting children in the abstract who are threatened by this global cabal, which is torturing and killing children and and extracting their adrenochrome in order to live forever. And so this is the pardon me, this is the kind of the scam, the sort of the bait and switch, and where they say that, well, we're going to go out here and we're going to save the children, and they get a lot of people who are pro saving children along with their cause, and then that sort of serves as a radicalization pathway into QAnon.
That's interesting. Like, I find when you have a utopian ideal on one hand, and like this, I guess you could say they're the roadblock to the utopian ideal, right? Is the people that are the pedophiles that are, I guess, whatever the cabal is doing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they essentially believe that once the sort of the pedophile cabal is exposed and Hillary finally get shipped to Gitmo, then that's when we can institute the utopia. I mean, they think that basically George Soros and Hillary Clinton living as free people is the only thing standing between us and a beautiful utopia. Free from disease and poverty and everything else that ills society. Okay.
I think I understand them a little bit more now than I did before, because I never really connected the two. I just, for some reason, I thought that they were part of the same group, but I couldn't quite place the connection. But that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just they think that, I mean, it almost is, I mean, kind of like, I don't know if it's a kind of class critique, but it's a sort of, I guess, a superficial one. And they think that these specific, particular wealthy and powerful people, because they exist, they're sort of inherently blocking progress because they want to, they want to save the world. Whereas they think that Donald Trump, he's the a good billionaire who's coming to save the day for some reason.
How did Donald Trump become the good billionaire in that?
Well, I think it's because I think it's a couple reasons. I mean, he is first of all, genuinely a Washington outsider, and this is something that a lot of people in the broader sort of MAGA movement and the QAnon have been really like hoping for, even before Trump stepped into politics. They thought that the entire sort of Washington establishment was just hopelessly corrupt, and so they wanted someone to pander to their particular fears and hopes, and was also a Washington outsider to step in and save the day. And so, and so this is that fit. And so basically Donald Trump really fit the bill. And, he made a lot of promises. He said what they wanted to hear. He said, for example, that he would lock Hillary up, which is, a bizarre authoritarian claim. This is clearly banana republic stuff. If you claim that if one of your campaign promises is to imprison your opponent in the political campaign, but they loved it so much that motivated a lot of people to vote for him, and they felt like they were owed Hillary Clinton being imprisoned. Of course, it didn't happen, which is partly why they sort of fell into this fantasy that there is a secret plan to lock up Hillary.
Okay, yeah, because wasn't one of Q's first posts was about Hillary being arrested, right?
Yeah. The very first Q drop, all the way back in October of 2017, essentially promised that Hillary's arrest was imminent, and then she would attempt to do a cross-border run, and then her passport was flagged. It was all very dramatic. Of course, it was based on nothing, and the very first Q drop made a false prediction. But that narrative resonated with a lot of people who thought that Trump would sincerely follow up on what was essentially a campaign promise to lock up Hillary.
Yeah, that's kind of all falls a little bit more in line with what I thought before. Like it, I guess there is a narrative to it, even though, like, from the outside, as a person who collects, various media sources, there hasn't always been a clear narrative, but there is apparently something there that I guess you can see if you're in it a little more in depth, I guess.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is really impenetrable, a lot of it. And it's also, I mean, the other thing that's sort of confusing about the whole QAnon narrative is that a lot of it is crowdsourced. It's not nearly something that's sort of that Q is dictating from on high, and then QAnon followers believe. There's a kind of feedback loop in which the QAnon followers, they sort of generate the broader narrative, and then it's sort of adopted by QAnon, and Q repeats the popular elements of that narrative in Q drops, and then even more QAnon followers believe it and then build upon it. It's this sort of, it's very participatory and gamified in that sense.
Oh, that's interesting. When did they start using the where we go one, we go all phrase and hashtag? And where did it come from?
So, yes, where we go one, we go all, the sort of the QAnon slogan. I think that was actually a fairly early concept, all the way back in, I think it was November of 2017, maybe December. But that particular phrase comes from the film White Squall from the 90s. It was one of the sort of the popular phrases from that movie. They sort of adopted it as their own, and I mean, QAnon followers, they love movies generally. A lot of early Q drops, they referenced movies like the Sum of All Fears. There are a couple of Godfather 3 references, which is very strange. But yeah,
that's the worst one. Why did they pick that one?
I don't know.
Understand.
I gotta say, it's like a lot of Q drops. They just end with with they say it's something like Snow White, Godfather 3. And like, of course, this caused a lot of QAnon followers to like watch Godfather 3 and attempt to find clues and stuff. That's one of the sort of the cryptic clues of QAnon. That's especially baffling.
I suppose it must mean something to the person who's posting as Q or did post, right?
Yeah. It did. It probably did mean something, but I mean, a lot of it, I mean, is deliberately vague, and sometimes it's sort of part of an effort to sort of create meaning within the follower itself. I mean, this is why this is partly why Q rarely speaks in sort of complete, coherent, clear sentences. Is that the sort of the ambiguity allows the QAnon follower to generate their own meaning, whatever they prefer, whatever they like the best, and this is partly why it's so attractive.
I know this might be kind of unreasonable to ask because as far as I know, nobody knows for sure. But who do you think Q is?
Yeah, I mean that's a really excellent question. In terms of like who is behind Q, we can say we're extremely confident that Ron and Jim Watkins, who are the people behind the website where Q currently posts, which is 8kun, are probably behind Q. There's some evidence that they kind of like they sort of hijacked the trick code, which is sort of the string of characters that identifies Q as the real Q, sometime in sort of early 2018. And so it seems as though like it was sort of like taken over by them. But when you answer like who controls the Q trip code, that doesn't quite answer who authors the Q drops. So this adds sort of a deeper mystery. Who authors the Q drops and who has authored the Q drops has probably been multiple people. Is almost certainly changed hands a few times. There's this distinct change in styles over time. So yeah, we can say if we want to point the fingers to sort of who is to blame for the sort of expansion of QAnon, it definitely would have to be Ron and Jim Watkins. But
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, do they have like what do they have to gain from continuing the spread of this conspiracy theory and following?
Well, I mean, first of all, they have to gain, the continued sort of popularity of their website. Jim Watkins, apparently, he had ambitions to be kind of like a media mogul. He had this website that was called the Goldwater before. That would sort of like spread a lot of conspiratorial narratives that are suspiciously Q-like long before Q. So it seems as though they sort of fit in with his general sort of bizarre sort of like again online media ambitions. So yeah, I think it's the same thing as a lot of any other sort of like online business person. They want money and power, and in order to achieve those things online, you need a lot of attention. And Q is something that helps get his websites a lot of attention.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. It probably makes money off of advertising like Facebook does. Do you see very many people like actually deconvert from being part of this belief system?
So it does happen. I have spoken to a few people who say that they have left QAnon. And so people do, once they sort of start encountering the sort of the bad things about Q and they realize that they're being misled, it does happen occasionally, but not very frequently, because usually when someone is deep within a belief system and they've sacrificed a lot of themselves in order to continue being part of the belief system, it's very, very difficult, sometimes next to impossible, for them to get out. Because think about it, if you devote 2 years of your life and you've spent hours and hours and hours to this QAnon worldview, one sort of snarky tweet isn't going to make you sort of realize that your entire project that you've been working on for years is totally wrong and off. So yeah, I mean, the thing is that just because due to human psychology, the sunk cost fallacy, this idea that if you sink a lot of resources into something, then you ought to keep going. Otherwise, it's a waste. This sort of effect causes people to double down whenever their beliefs are disconfirmed rather than reevaluate.
Yeah, like I'm always curious, like how weak, because obviously if somebody is willing to stop talking to their children, then tweeting at them isn't going to do anything. But is there anything that we can do to, I guess, maybe just put information out there?
I mean, the only thing that I can do, I always felt like whenever I approach this stuff, I never harbor any hope that that I'm actually going to deconvert someone. If it does, it's wonderful. But my attitude is always like, listen, I can debunk and I can tell the truth, and I'm going to do that not because I expect a end result, but because the truth matters, and because it's wrong that these people are being misled, and it's wrong to promote falsehoods when the truth is available. And I try to hammer away at sort of this disinformation and these destructive worldviews with that kind of attitude. And sometimes it does help someone. Sometimes someone does come across a tweet and it helps them. I mean, I don't think by the number of people I've helped is I doubt you could count them on two hands. But if it does help someone, then fantastic. But I mean, I think that you should sort of promote. I come from the attitude of like I should think you should debunk false conspiracy theories because the truth matters. Yeah,
I think that's fair. And somebody who's not already in depth within something like that, if they encounter your stuff first, then they could help prevent them from getting into it, right? Potentially.
Yes, this is the concept of pre-bunking, and this is very useful because the thing is that the radicalization process is very emotional, right? Like the Save the Children narrative. It's very emotional to believe that there are children trapped in adrenochrome farms or something, and this sort of this emotional trigger causes people to go down a very weird and dark rabbit hole. But however, if, for example, you first encounter this information in a little bit more cold, calculated, skeptical way, and this is your first introduction to it, and then you maybe you encounter the propaganda later that's more emotional, then it might have less of an effect on you. This is the theory, at least.
One hopes. So in one of the episodes that I listened to of Qanon Anonymous, you guys went to like a conference or convention of Q believers. And I think it was you that said that you never felt like you were in danger at that convention. And that struck me as really odd because I would have expected it to feel very threatening to be surrounded by these people. I don't know. Maybe you can describe that for me and tell me why you didn't feel like you were in danger.
One thing that you learn about QAnon followers after studying them for a long time is that they are different from a lot of extremists. I mean, you hear them talk about how much they want Hillary Clinton to swing and Gitmo and stuff, and they wish violence upon like Hollywood celebrities and all these things. They're fixated on all these violent fantasies. You think they would be very, very threatening to someone who spends so much time basically telling people that QAnon is worthless, as I do. But you learn a couple things. Like number one, they're primarily angry at the sort of the power structures, the media, Hollywood, the political structures of the mainstream media. I always say that, but like these sorts of things. That's what makes them really, really mad. They know that I'm not that. They think that I am, like, at worst, simply mistaken and misguided. They don't think of me as, like, a powerful person who's been working to oppress them. The other thing is that a lot of these QAnon followers, they're distinct from extremists, is that they have no interest generally in doing the violence themselves. They think that they want to sort of outsource the violence that they want to happen to the military or the courts or the police system. They essentially they want violence to happen, but they don't want they don't want to do it themselves, basically.
Okay.
So those two factors kind of made me realize that I'm not in any real danger, even if I'm like surrounded by dedicated QAnon followers. Now, this is obviously not the case with all extremists. I would not feel safe,
Right.
at, for example, a white supremacist convention or something like that. Those sorts of people feel very comfortable doing violence themselves. But QAnon followers, they prefer not to. They think that other people are going to do the violence that they want to happen.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, like, it's different. It's considerably different than, say, a white supremacist group then, because even though they have extreme beliefs, like you say, like one group is very, very willing to do violence. And I guess QAnon believers are more inclined to believe that some savior will come and do it on their behalf.
They have so much faith in the military. They think the military is going to swoop in and just fix everything for them, basically.
Okay. So I guess I know what it feels like to listen to the audio from some of these rallies where they're yelling about, I don't know, pedophiles and the media and like, how does it actually, like, what does it feel like to stand there with them? Are you just as baffled and as I am as you're with them? Or does it seem more natural to be there, I guess?
It is for me, of course, it feels exactly like, watching a feed of very radicalized QAnon followers on Twitter or something,
Okay.
but as in person. But what really strikes me more than anything else is that you sort of see the sense of community and excitement that they get, because these people otherwise feel very alienated from not just wider culture, but also sometimes even their own families. And so here's an opportunity they get to commune with other people who have the same sort of extreme worldview that they do. So they feel a lot more comfortable and more free. And you kind of see why they're kind of attracted to that.
They should join the left. So another thing.
Yeah, this is something we often talk about, or try to talk about in the show, how, we sometimes we sort of understand their broadest grievances about like elite corruption or, the system not working as they think it should, and these sorts of things. The problem is that rather than sort of, addressing, the things that are actually causing their frustration, they instead descend into this kind of fantasy world,
Yeah, I think I've heard similar things about lots of right wing kind of extremist views. Even say like the anti-immigration movement, or like you get your, I don't know, even some of your white supremacists. They're alienated from the product of their labor. They're working meaningless jobs, getting nothing from it, and then they've got this thing that they know is wrong with society, and then somebody else directs them in the wrong direction.
Yeah. It also gives them a solution that makes them feel like a hero who can personally solve everything. No one wants to hear like, you are a cog in the machine, and you are individually powerless, and sort of like real power has to come from some other kind of project. What QAnon tells people is like, you personally can be basically on the vanguard of a revolutionary change in society that's going to fix everything you hate, but all you got to do is sit at your computer and then post post memes. This is an enticing offer that I don't know, can't be matched by, I guess, in most other political worldviews.
No, that's right. Even as a person on the left, I sometimes can see how that hero self identity of a hero could be helpful, rather than feeling like, okay, well, we have a lot of work to do. We have to join a party, and we have to create committees, and we have to do direct action. So it's so much easier to just sit on your computer and post memes.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about like long-term solution that requires organizing and time, that sounds like no solution at all. It also means that basically also that says that you are a victim. I mean, when you talk about like you are. I mean, like what is? I mean, these people, they basically don't want to be told that they are an oppressed victim or something, and then they need to organize amongst people that they may not even personally like in order to achieve a solution. They want to hear that
right.
you individually are a hero, and then you individually can get us out of the situation in just a matter of a couple of years, maybe a couple of months, maybe a couple of weeks, because the promised revolution is going to come right around the corner. Also, you don't really need to do anything because the military will take care of most of the dirty work.
I guess there is a level of that on the left, actually. Like, there is that mythical revolution that's right around the corner, right? Back to QAnon, I guess. What are we hearing from Q now?
So we're not really hearing much from Q. I mean, the last Q drop was really a link to a fan-made video that used the song "We're Not Gonna Take It," written by singer-songwriter Dee Snider. And this is a not very substantive Q drop. This is something I sometimes call like a pep rally drop. It's because sometimes Q will simply do something to like rally up the troops. It's not doesn't even pretend to be like secret insider military information or that kind of nonsense like that. It's just sort of like,
okay.
It's just sort of fan service, giving the fans of QAnon what they want. So I mean, Q has been really silent, but in its place, Ron Watkins, the administrator of 8Q and formerly allegedly, actually has been on Twitter being very, very active, spreading conspiracy theories, especially around Dominion voting systems, around, generally around the legitimacy of the election. Just today, Ron Watkins was claiming that President Trump was going to invoke basically this special 2018 executive order that he believes will give him the authority to institute martial law and stuff. It's all nonsense. But the sort of the QAnon community, the thing about it is that it can operate independently of Q drops. It's a self-sustaining engine. So even though Q has been silent for a couple of weeks, which isn't uncommon, the QAnon community is still very, very active, generating conspiracy theories.
Okay. So I guess I guess we're coming up here 45 minutes ish. So we'll get into counter propaganda and foes and comrades in a minute. But I'm curious what you think is the future of the QAnon belief system and movement.
So yeah, I mean that is a really good question, and I'm really hesitant to make a lot of predictions about what the future is going to look like, because a lot of it depends upon what Trump's going to do when he's out of office, because it's such a pro-Trump movement. They will follow him wherever he goes. I mean, one possible narrative is that people in the QAnon community will claim that, no, of course, Trump had to lose the election because now that he's out of office, he can take down the deep state without being monitored in the White House or some sort of nonsense like that. I saw some QAnon followers, promoting sort of a variation of that. But what I am really confident of is that the QAnon sort of like movement will certainly persist during a Biden administration,
right.
because typically conspiracies and conspiratorial movements thrive not when the sort of the aggrieved party is in power. It's usually when they're out of power. It's very strange. They say that conspiracy theories are for losers, in the sense that baseless conspiracy theories are most typically generated as a way to explain why people feel powerless. But in the case of QAnon, it was pro-Trump wild conspiracy theory narrative that formed while Trump was in power. And so while he's out of power, those kinds of those sorts of grievances about feeling powerless will probably be inflamed, even more, and cause them to generate even more conspiracy theories.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Alex Jones had a huge following long before Trump was ever in office, and he's major into the conspiracy thing, right? So.
And most importantly, he sort of rose to power and prominence during the Clinton administration, which, of course, during the while a Democrat was in office, this far right narrative that Alex Jones was pushing became wildly popular, which is sort of the standard of how it works. This is why we had the Tea Party patriots and birtherism that got very, very popular during the Obama administration. That's the normal cycle of things, is that these wild far right conspiratorial movements, they get popular while someone to the left of Donald Trump is in office.
Yeah, they kind of need that enemy in power to. Okay, so. Now, I guess we will go on to the counter propaganda segment of the episode. And I did not have any idea about this. I haven't heard anything about this Russian promoting and nurturing of QAnon. So, fill me in.
So, there's lots of well-meaning liberals, who sometimes overemphasize the role that Russia had in the growth of QAnon. And I will say very quickly that it is absolutely true that Russian intel, foreign actors did promote QAnon narratives early on, even as in 2017 and 2018. There's good reason to believe that is the case, which is unsurprising because foreign actors, they boost any kind of narrative that they think is going to foster division in the United States. But it crosses the line into an unhelpful narrative when you say that it's just a Russian psyop. It's like everything about QAnon is sort of engineered, but in St. Petersburg, and that's the only reason that this thing grew. I think that a lot of researchers also agree that the core elements of the QAnon community grew mostly organically. Because this is the kind of thing that was very attractive to a subset of Americans naturally, and therefore and that frustrates me, because I think that if we want to solve this kind of problem, we need to start thinking about why it grew here and why people thought it was attractive and why people fell for it. And when you say it's a Russian psyop, and then this puts the blame and a force outside of the borders of the United States. Right. And I don't think that's a very helpful way to think about solutions, because I think the problems of that gave rise to QAnon are firmly within the borders of the United States, and that's where we should be thinking about.
Yeah, like you say, even if it was promoted by Russian actors at some point, it has a distinctly American flavor to it, I guess.
Yeah. This is the kind of thing, like everything, every element of this thing, like the satanic panic, the belief that there are satanic forces in politics, or the murderous hatred for Hillary Clinton, or the belief that Hollywood is part of the Illuminati, these sorts of things. These are all themes that existed in American conspiratorial politics long before 2016, 2017. So I mean, I think that it's just not helpful when looking for the kind of the origin of QAnon. I think that the sort of the promotion by Russians is noteworthy, but it's not the main story. It's certainly not the whole story about why this thing got so popular.
For my own counter propaganda, I was thinking about whoever is currently spreading this conspiracy of the Great Reset in Canada. we have it's very common right now because Justin Trudeau said the word reset in a speech once fairly recently.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where a lot of these conspiracists, they take these really fluffy, meaningless slogans like, the U.S. build back better. And a lot of this is simply feel good projection about how things are going to be in the future or particular plans. And they sort of infuse them with, nefarious meaning. I mean, I'm all for sort of being skeptical about the motives of powerful people, but I don't think there's really anything to these slogans like build back better or the Great Reset than the sort of the general I guess liberal political projects that these people have.
Yeah, exactly. We'll move on now to foes and comrades. So you didn't have any foes in the list, so I guess we're just talking about QAnon anyway.
I guess. I mean, we're talking about foes. I mean, there are lots of there's a whole rogues gallery of people who promote baseless conspiracy theories. I
to
could
pick
talk about
one,
I talk about Praying Medic, who's a real piece of shit, who promotes magical divine healing stuff along QAnon stuff. I could talk about Martin Geddes in the UK, who has been promoting a lot of bizarre fantasies about martial law and QAnon. I could talk about this guy on Twitter named Major Patriot, who is just itching for the military to crack down. So there's just an endless stream of shitty people who promote QAnon because they think it's real. But in terms of comrades, I mean, I will say that there has been the thing about QAnon is that it is something that has been very difficult for the mainstream media to cover very effectively. There has been a handful of good reporters for traditional news outlets. I mean, I could talk about Will Sommer for the Daily Beast. He's been covering this really, really well. NBC News and Ben Collins over there, he's been covering it really, really well. But generally, this is such a weird, niche-y internet thing, is that most of the mainstream media just had no idea how to take it on. And so that means that basically that a bulk of the QAnon research was performed by amateurs on Twitter and stuff. So, I mean, I want to talk about, there's one, his name is Poker and Politics. He's at Poker Politics on Twitter. He's been doing great research. There's another guy who goes by the name Dapper Gander. It's just at Dapper Gander, and he's very knowledgeable about QAnon generally. So there's also there's an academic actually up in Canada named Marc-Andre Argentino, who I think is probably going to be probably one of the best QAnon experts once he's done with his thesis. So he's extremely knowledgeable. So I mean, there's been a handful of people who've been really on the ball, even when the mainstream media generally wasn't sure how to tackle this strange topic.
Oh, that's great. I find that similar again to the right wing, white supremacist groups and stuff like that. The extremists, they don't get what seems like effective coverage in mainstream media. And so you end up following all these independent sources that have to like do the work.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, especially since like white supremacy has like such an incredible, body count. Like, the deadliest attack on Jews in the United States in history happened 2 years ago at the Tree of Life Synagogue Church, at the hands of a white supremacist who believed in was it the Great Replacement theory? And I feel like this is, I agree. Like seems like a very serious domestic terrorism problem, but it's not talked about in those terms as much as it should in the mainstream media.
Yeah, you got to follow your independent journalists for that stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me. Where can people find your stuff online?
So, if you'll follow me, I'm just at Travis_View on Twitter. And my podcast is Qanon Anonymous. And with my fellow co-hosts, Jake and Julian, we try to explore the weird QAnon world as best as we can. And we have a lot of fun, too, because I think that, and the thing is, this material is very dark. So if we have to engage with it, we might as well, try and have some fun with it.
For sure. Yeah, it's right up. It's one of the handful of podcasts that goes to the top of my playlist when it gets released. So,
thank you.
So right on. Thank you very much for talking to me today, and
definitely, it was a pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for inviting me, Corey.
You bet. That's all, folks. Thanks for listening, and remember to share the episode with your friends and on the social medias. Post it on Facebook groups, send it on WhatsApp, and basically annoy the hell out of everyone you know by letting them know how good this show is and how much they should listen to it. Thanks to everyone who supports this show on Patreon. I have 17 supporters who contribute $1 or more each month, and that makes the time I spend on the shows I run more viable. So that's patreon.com/skepticalleftist, or you can send me money on PayPal at paypal.me/brainstormpodcast. Every dollar that you send my way helps me spend more time on this podcast and YouTube channel, as well as the other shows that I participate in and produce. If you can't contribute financially, then a 5-star rating and a review on your podcast app of choice or one of the podcast review sites like Podchaser would be great. If you want to find more from me, then make sure to check out my Linktree, Linktree/SkepticalCorey. You can find all my social media stuff there, as well as links to my other shows, which include Skeptarchy, From Many People's Strength, and The Feminist Family. My Twitter is @HardcoreSkeptic, and my Facebook page is The Mind of a Skeptical Leftist, or you can send me a friend request at facebook.com/CJBrainstorm. Thanks for listening again. Have a good one.